Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to the Shia City podcast. We are joined by Sheikh Bilal.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alayhi Islam. So, Sheikh, today's topic:
Oh boy.
what should I be looking for in a spouse?
Baba, at your age, you just date whatever you can get. Oh, man, you really signed up for the firing squad on this one, didn't you?
Yeah, look,
If you haven't figured it out,
the team is out to get me. Oh,
please call 555-5555. Single guy, get him married.
yeah. So, what should I be looking for in a spouse, Sheikh Bilal?
All right. First question is, when should you be looking for a spouse? And clearly you should have started a long time ago.
I feel like this podcast is going to be about me.
I think anybody who could have saved you doesn't want to save you at this point in time. But okay, let's structure our conversation first and foremost,
Okay.
right? Is when you start thinking about marriage. And traditional Islamic senses, marriage was something that was thought about with maturity and independence as a child grew up to the point where they could handle a lifestyle, that it was the parents who would broach the subject for marriage. And there was no concept in the mind. Why? In an Islamic environment where men and women are kept separate, for a young man, there's no inappropriateness on TV. There's no girls to mix with. There's nothing else like that. The exposure to the opposite gender is very limited, and it's usually in the concept of family. So when the idea and time for marriage came, there's nothing in their mind about who and what to get married, and the parents bring the concept of who to get married and how.
So there's no preset notions.
Today, when we talk about and the arguments that are presented about arranged marriages, the context is completely wrong. In an environment where a child has an independent idea, is exposed to the opposite gender frequently, and is told to think about the opposite gender, telling them now that every opinion you've had and you've been thinking about is wrong and I'm going to tell you what to do, it's considered abusive. It's considered wrong. Which is why, to correct the question of where and when arranged marriage is appropriate, let's look at an Islamic environment. And in an Islamic environment where you have no exposure, you have no familiarity, you have no idea what you're talking about, someone who knows you very well and intimately, guiding you to someone who is a good match for you, is a great way to start your life. But that's in an Islamic environment. We live in America.
Yeah.
America is a multicultural, somewhat atheistic lifestyle that is very open to the satisfaction of desires and partnering and pairing with the opposite gender from a very young age.
And now it's even a younger age, right? Compared to what it was like 10 years ago.
10 years ago? You want to say 10 years ago?
I just want to say, I haven't been around that long, guys. 5 years ago.
Look, in American culture, when you start talking about marriage, is going to be very different than an Islamic environment because of the amount of exposure that's offered. In all honesty, before a child starts looking at media and understanding the concept of boyfriend, girlfriend, you want to start laying the seeds that they think about who do they want to spend their life with? What kind of a person? And that's parents asking the question, what would you like your spouse to be like? And the natural reaction should be like mom, like dad, or like those pious attributes that they're exposed to in their household, not what they see on TV.
What is a good time to start these conversations or kind of start planting those seeds?
I believe that it's around the age of about 13, 14, as you see the maturity of your child. Some children mature very quickly, and 11 or 12 may be appropriate. Others, they more gradually, they're more busy with themselves in their free time, and 14, 15 can be more appropriate. But basically, if you're letting your kid watch TV and your kid's going to school, they're being exposed to coupling and pairing at a very early age.
And the Western way of thinking.
And before they start looking at those things, you want to have an opinion. Otherwise, whatever the hero on TV looks like, or the heroine or the actress on TV looks like, is what they're going to be attracted to, because that's what media is teaching them to be attracted to.
So does Islam give you like a date, or not a date, but like an age that, hey, don't push past this?
Yes. The Prophet makes a statement that I don't like for a young man not to be married by the age of 27.
Okay.
27 is kind of that upper limit. The younger limit is the point of maturity and capability of being able to handle a marriage. And this is where there's a difference in perspective, where Western society teaches you marriage is the end of your freedom.
Yeah.
And Islam teaches you marriage is the beginning of your freedom. And this is where, for example, we're seeing people putting it more and more off because they look at it as, oh, this is liability, this is responsibility, this is absence of freedom, this is going away from. Listen, if you live a haram lifestyle, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That now all of the haram things I could do and nobody would question me, now I can't do them because there's someone who I'm answerable to.
Yeah.
But if, for example, and this is why the perspective on how we look at the opposite gender and how Islam and why hijab, why separation of genders is so important, is because it keeps you pure and clean so that your marriage is not just about physical satisfaction, it's emotional satisfaction. This day and age, what happens? I receive emotional satisfaction through my female friends or male friends of the opposite gender, and marriage to me is simply a physical outlet.
Hmm.
But Islam didn't want marriage to simply be a physical outlet. It wants it to be your emotional outlet. It wants it to be your emotional connection. And that's why it says keep them separated, keep the gender separated. So that why? So that that curiosity and that interest in the opposite gender remains pure. And if it remains pure, then you want to rush towards marriage because that's the start of this relationship. That's the start of me learning entirely about a new gender through my halal outlet that's going to be with me for the rest of my life, inshallah. But if I've already fulfilled that, and there are women who I talk to, or for girls, there are men that I talk to, and I can get emotional satisfaction, then I can delay physical gratification. I can delay going through that process. I can look at it as the end because now when I get married, oh, she'll have a problem with me talking to this girl and that girl and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Or if I get married, my husband will not like when I want to talk to this boy and that boy and so on and so forth and these friends. So I see it as the end, which is why the perspective of when you start talking about marriage really depends on the culture that you live in. In our culture, we want to talk about it earlier before someone else comes in and supplants the idea of what Islam likes with something else.
And then you can't separate that from what
And
our
this is for both boys and
Yeah,
girls,
yeah.
by the way. I'm not just saying for boys. This day and age, right? And that's it. Marriage is no longer considered a priority for either gender. For boys and for girls, it's viewed as the end. And for girls in particular, in the last 20 years or so, it's been vilified. And it's been considered something horrible. And it's been considered something that it's almost abusive for a woman to get married. Yet, in all honesty, it's the exact opposite of that.
But why do you think that is? Is that because of like experience or stories of certain people who have gone through certain things? Or,
Dude, I have my conspiracy theories that speak back to capitalism.
okay.
The family prevents you from making bad financial decisions. A family is something that forces you to have responsibility and look past desire and look at need.
Okay.
Breaking the family system in a capitalistic environment is very important because those individuals, when they're alone and they're making money, they have more money to spend individually than when they become a family unit and they have kids and they go out and they take responsibility for each other and they look to the future of taking care of each other. But if I can make you feel self-satisfied and I can give you everything as an individual, that's so much more, what do we say, discretionary income
Yeah.
and disposable income. So as a capitalistic environment, I don't like families. Families create liabilities, they create responsibilities, they create
Financial
restrictions.
burdens.
Independence is the best. You don't need to buy a house. It's just you. Keep low cost living. Have more discretionary income. Go out and I treat you
You
to
can
be
travel
boss.
now.
Travel, buy things that you want, change your car every year, change your phone every year. Why? You don't have anything else to do with your money and you're making good money.
Yeah.
So which is why my personal perspective is that capitalism plays a very big role in the process of denouncing marriage, denouncing family, and separating you from all of the traditional values that create responsibility and accountability. The other element is the same way, is that it used to be that discretionary income or free income was something in the hands of men because they worked. What happened? Since the 1980s, women have been brought into the workplace, and now they're earning an income. And this is where the concept of feminism became established, that women judge the value of their life and their accomplishments not on feminine characteristics, but masculine characteristics. It's about, I need to have the highest paying job. My success and my quality is in how good my profession is, how good my degrees are, that I'm the best and most eloquent in my industry, in my field. and has nothing to do with family, has nothing to do with creating a family unit, creating a community,
Yeah.
being responsible. But in Islam, and this is a really important concept, in Islam, the most valuable thing that you do is create a family. Because one, Imam Sadiq explains, the Prophet explains that marriage is something desirable in Islam. One who wants to meet Allah without sin should meet Allah with a spouse. One who gets married has protected half of their faith. Prophet says, marriage is from my tradition, and one who does not follow my tradition is not from me.
Yeah.
And he says, get married, have children, I will intercede on your behalf on the day of judgment. He's telling you the path to receive salvation. Further to that, let's take a look at it very materially. Getting married is good in the sense that you create people who care about you and pray for you. What's happening to the concept of feminism where people don't want to get married, or even men who don't want to get married? When you die, who is there to pray for you?
No one.
What did you leave behind? What's going to continue the good work after you? Who's going to be there for you?
There's no legacy.
Forget legacy. It's your insurance policy that if I die and I leave people worshiping Allah on this earth after me, then okay, maybe I wasn't the best of person, but at least those children, when they worship Allah, Allah will say that you left a good issue that did good work. And this is why Imam Sadiq explains that having children is thawab jari, it's a continuous reward. That as long as that child worships, you get the reward.
Yeah.
And imagine if you create an entire lineage.
Subhanallah.
But we're not thinking about it. We're just thinking about how do I feel and how much fun can I have with a spouse versus without a spouse.
Yeah.
And that's the only measure of my success. And that's a problem. This is why, before we even get into the attributes I'm going to look at for in a spouse, it's like, okay, what are we going to talk about marriage?
Yeah.
When is this going to happen? What are the right conversations to have? And we're really just, honestly, we're just getting lost because of this culture that's influencing us and taking away the priorities. And we have to kind of reset that in ourselves and in our community, that no, marriage is desirable. It's a good thing. It's something to look forward to.
So now that we discussed why marriage is important and the importance of getting married, let me ask you, what are the qualities, or the things that I should look into when I'm trying to get a spouse? Should she be from the same culture that I'm from? How much of the importance does that play?
Okay. That's actually, I hate to admit it, but that was a good question.
Got one.
Why is it a good question? Because there's something unique about our generation here in America and the generation that's coming up. Is that what do we identify with more, American culture or the culture of our parents? And how that plays a role. Let me explain. When you grow up in a cultural household, whether it's Pakistani, Hyderabadi, Afghani, Iraqi, Yemeni, wherever you're from, your house has a certain comfort for you and certain familiarity to you. And finding a spouse who shares that familiarity makes it easier to connect on a level with them that makes it easier to build a family. For example, let's imagine your comfort food is biryani, which I don't think is far off, but let's assume it's biryani. And your wife's comfort food is cheeseburgers and steaks. Your language and your culture defines how you relax and how you enjoy and what kind of environment you want at home. And if you don't have the same culture, it just makes it harder to find a common ground. Similarly, when it comes to, for example, raising your children, you grew up a particular way, or I grew up a particular way in my house. I want my children to have those same good things. But if my spouse had very different things than I did at home, it's not going to translate into the same culture that I give my children.
Different upbringing.
So that's it. A similarity in culture benefits me that it makes my home environment, for whether I'm a man or a woman, more similar, that we speak the same comfort language, we speak the same familiarity of how do we commemorate and celebrate, how do we enjoy our relaxing time, how do we show formality. All those things become easier for the two of us to come to a decision on because there's common ground we come from.
Okay.
Now, the truth of it is that growing up here as first generation or second generation as we're getting established, I may find that I identify more with an American culture than I do with a Desi culture or an Arab
I
culture
was
or an
gonna bring
Iranian
that up.
culture.
I feel like nowadays it's like people are embarrassed of their culture and they rather like, adapt to the American culture because we live here.
And which is why finding a spouse who agrees with that cultural norm that you're used to, it may be that, for example, the Pakistani culture doesn't speak to a Pakistani anymore. The Persian culture, buying, getting married in Iran or in Afghanistan and bringing them here doesn't work because the culture's too different now
Yeah.
versus the local culture that's here. But sometimes, for example, even in the local culture, I may find that I have more close ties so that's it. The scale that people are at is very different now. But culture, the benefit of culture and keeping in our culture is that it's much easier to find an environment we're comfortable in. That if they like the same food I like, or they're exposed to the same food I like, the same kind of household environment that I was in, it makes it easier for us that we don't have to translate this to say that when I'm happy, I like to eat, or when I'm sad, I like to do. We both have similar structures. So this is the benefit of culture, is that it creates a commonality, a common ground for a couple to build a relationship on. So it's a good thing. Is it necessary? No.
Hmm.
And especially as I'm describing, the American culture may be something we find more common for us than, for example, a Desi culture or a Persian culture or an Arab culture. We may find that we have a much better aspect in tying on American lifestyle. We both are happy with burger and fries. Every so often we'll do something different, but we know what our staples are. We know what our meat and potatoes are that we like. You want to do something nice for your spouse, make a mistake or make her a steak.
Oh, I thought
Rather
you said make a mistake.
make him a steak
Oh, okay.
or make her a steak.
So
Rather
no
than
mistake.
rather than biryani and nahari, or rather than, for example, korma sabzi, or for example, naham nahamoy. These things are cultural, and
Chicken makhni.
it can be possible that you like that.
Okay.
But that's the benefit of culture is it creates common ground. It makes
So
it easier.
from a cultural aspect, it makes things easier. Now, what if I throw into the mix of how important it is to have a Muslim wife rather than a non-Muslim wife or
Okay.
or a husband?
So first and foremost, in Islam, to do aqd daim or permanent marriage with Ahl Kitab is not permissible. Most, if not all of our ulama agree that permanent marriage can only be conducted between two Muslimin.
Hmm.
Part of this is because um, the when you marry someone and you build that relationship, they gain a sense of authority over you and your possessions. And to give that authority to someone who's not a Muslim over a Muslim is not allowed.
Okay.
So, which is why it's problematic from a Shari perspective. And then, even further than that, you're going back to the fundamental. If I want to marry someone who's not a Muslim, why am I getting married? And that's it. If you're defining marriage on the basis of love, love before marriage is not true love.
Okay.
Love
What is it?
love before marriage is egotism, is selfishness. Why? Love before marriage is defined by how I feel, what I want, and I need, and I like, and I love. Love, true love, that comes after marriage, is that love where I consider the other person before I consider myself. And which is why love before marriage, all aspects of love, when I fall in love with someone before marriage, it's how that person makes me feel that defines that this is love.
Hmm.
But when Allah describes and He says in the Quran that He says that I created for you spouses from amongst yourselves and placed between you love and mercy. Love and mercy being paired together is a discussion about the aspect that has less to do with how I feel. When I'm merciful to someone, it's not how it makes me feel, it's what I do for them and putting them in consideration. True love is about giving more than you receive, is about considering what I'm giving, not what I'm receiving.
Yeah.
And that's why that love before marriage is not real love. So, which is why if my aspect of marrying someone from Ahl Kitab is about love, then that's selfishness. And that selfishness today is happy with this, tomorrow it won't be. Further to that, the true purpose of marriage, we mentioned, is to help you go to heaven, to create a good posterity, to have something that assists you in furthering your faith. How can I do that if faith isn't a part of my decision making process? This relationship is no longer good for me. And that's where we have to think about that. Why would we do that? And it doesn't serve a purpose. The third point in this conversation on this topic is technically others are more interested in marrying Muslims today then Muslims are marrying them. Let me explain. Do Muslims drink?
No.
Do they gamble?
No.
Do they eat pork?
No.
Do they commit adultery?
No.
Generally, no. All these answers are no. We don't curse. We don't lie. We don't cheat. We don't steal. Someone looking out sees the values that are represented in Islam and is attracted to them. And when they pick someone to be a spouse who is a Muslim, they get all of these benefits. And they get a good partner that will treat them well and do all these right things for them. What do you get in return? Is that marriage going to make you a better person?
No.
Is that marriage going to be something that challenges you and exposes you to better, newer Islamic or things that grow you towards Allah?
No, because you're already bringing the best of it to the relationship.
And you're going to be the one who's responsible for constantly bringing it and educating the other person, and the other person doesn't have anything to offer you. Which is why, listen, I'm not saying don't marry someone who converts to Islam. That's not the argument. But someone who, for example, looks outside in, sees all the benefits, wants the benefits, but doesn't want to change, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
That is a huge red flag. Instead, what should it be? Is that if someone comes to Islam and they're looking for a spouse, phenomenal. Why? That's a person who's going to continue to grow and change and improve throughout the entirety of their life. That's a person who's going to become better and is trying to become better every day of their life. Me partnering with that person is going to challenge me to be a better person. It's going to challenge me to be someone who's good and continuously grows as well, too. That's amazing. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. But if vice versa, the person wants this without changing, wants all the good and never make a change in their own life,
That's red flags.
that's going to cause a problem for me in the future. So, which is why.
And that may not be the case right away, right?
Again, today it's selfish love.
Yeah.
Today I'm marrying you because I love you, regardless of what you are. I don't care that you're, worship the spaghetti monster. It's an actual religion. There's a religion, the spaghetti, flying spaghetti monster. There's a whole religion.
No, nothing against you guys. I didn't know.
Today it may not mean anything because today I'm selfish. But what happens when I fulfill that desire? It's no longer desirable. And now
Then I don't want it.
in something else. So this is why looking for love before marriage is not healthy. It's not the kind of love that's going to last. It's an infatuation. It's a desire. Once it's fulfilled, it goes away. But if my goal is to get closer to Allah and I do things for the right reason, then love will grow in me and Allah will give me that love and my consideration for my partner will grow and my approach to life will be different. And that'll be something that can last for a long time. And that's why pairing that with the idea of reducing our exposure to the opposite gender, thinking about marriage early, thinking about what kind of a person I want to marry before it's, to put it bluntly, sexualized, before it's looking at the context of lust. That is something more valuable in the decision-making process. And that's it. We don't want to think about lust and we don't want to think about these things. Yes, you want to love your partner, you want to be attracted to them, but that shouldn't be the first thing I think about when I think about my spouse. It should be about the values that they represent. It should be about the goodness that I grow in with them. It's about who we become together and how we become someone good in the eyes of Allah.
Cool. And that was our conversation with Sheikh Bilal on the importance of marriage and what we should look for in a spouse and how important it is to start early. Inshallah, we'll continue this conversation later. And thank you for watching.
We pray for him to get married and all of you to get married.
Ilahi, Ameen.